My, oh my, do you all look beautiful. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you for coming out to CultureCon. First of all, we got to show some love to the first half speakers. They were amazing. People are always coming up to me, asking me what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and things of that nature. And I got to be honest with you, the stuff that I'm going to say to y'all kind of comes last, because I know that'll come naturally. But for me, sitting back there like a proud papa, being able to see all of these beautiful people share their light and step out on this stage in front of a warm and welcoming, kind and thoughtful audience makes these type of things so easy. So please give it up for all the folks who hit the stage before today. Shout out to the mayor. I gotta be honest with you, I'm so happy to not have a lame mayor, you know what I mean? Somebody that can get out here, because some people got some really lame mayors, right? And to be able to have somebody come out here and want to be a part of it, right? Not just do an address, not just wave and be gone, but really want to be a part of it, really get up here and be vulnerable. So that's a big deal as well. So one of the things that we want to do as we have this conversation, because we're always trying to evolve CultureCon and be thoughtful about how we can increase the experience. And I'm going to answer a question that I'm sure some of you have asked yourself. Yes, the catwalk was my idea, okay? You know what I mean? I want to make sure everybody has a good seat, you know, so we can move around and be amongst you. But we want to be thoughtful about everything from how we have space in the room for you to be able to go and talk with each other and be able to engage and do those different things. And that's something that's really important to us because we wanted to create something special. And we're going to talk about kind of some of the thought processes behind CultureCon here in a second. But what we also wanted to do was kind of inspire you. This is not meant to be a commercial, but the question we so often get from folks is, well, what do you do? is one of the popular questions. And I always find it enjoyable when I see one of our friends or a person who is around us try to explain what we do to other people. And after a while, they're just like, I don't really know, right? And so we're going to go into the rabbit hole a little bit. And I want to unpack a little bit of what we do and how we think about feeding into the community. Because if you just looked at it as a business plan, it wouldn't make any sense to you whatsoever. But when you think about it as community building, it makes all the sense in the world, because what you realize is that if you're truly interested in affecting your community, you can't just flip a switch and have things happen. You know that things have to move in many different areas for you to be truly successful, for you to be able to truly push a community forward, and thus we touch a few different things. So I want to talk about some of those different things. And then I also want to share kind of the experience of what it's like to work with visionaries, right? I'm a visionary. Tame is a bit of a visionary as well. So we come with these big ideas, but we have to have really special people who can make them happen and practically put them into practice. And so I'm gonna have Dan come out here from time to time and help us out and kind of get into what it looks like from an implementation aspect. And also, we want to take some time at your tables for you to start thinking about how you could reach out into the community and have a more significant impact. It's not that you're not doing great things right now, but we can touch more if we're being more thoughtful about how we interact with our community as a whole. So we're going to get into a little bit of that as well. But I want to give you a little bit of a thought process about how we tend to think about things. So when we think about the idea of a culture and affecting our culture, what goes into that? For some people, they only want to think about a business. Well, if your business is only being concerned with the business part of it, then we're not necessarily fully thinking about the people who are in the business or the people that the business serves. And one of the things that you would hear me say, and I will say most often, is, what is the money for? Right? What is it for? Is it for us to feel good? Is it for us to enjoy our communities and each other? Is it to create spaces for the people we love to grow up happy and healthy? If that's the point, then we should behave like it, shouldn't we? And the things that we invest in and the things that we engage in should reflect where our passions are. Someone once told me, if you ever want to know what somebody really cares about, show me their calendar, show me a bank statement, and I'll tell you what they care about. And that's what we want to be thoughtful about, is what we're really investing in. And are we being the real McCoy? Are we doing the real thing? So we're going to talk about what goes into that. And so there's a few things. It's kind of the 5 C's. Now, there's more to it than this, but just for the sake of time, I'm trying not to go down too deep of a rabbit hole. So I just want to give you a couple of these things. So in order for us to do this, we try to engage in a few different things: collaboration, connection, community, conversations, and of course, coaching, which is what our primary function is. So we're going to talk about a few of these different things. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is collaboration. And collaboration, when you just get into the nuts and bolts of it, is just how you come together to produce a thing, right? How do multiple entities or people come together to produce a thing, presumably greater than what any of the individual parts would be able to produce themselves? And that's how we think about it. And probably one of the best examples we have of this is, well, CultureCon. This is a collaboration. This is a partnership. Was anybody here at CultureCon 1? Was anybody here at the first CultureCon? Raise your hand if you were here at the first CultureCon. Yes, I love it. I appreciate you. Well, who was also here with us at the first CultureCon is Pinnacle Productions. So you see this beautiful production here and all that goes into it. First of all, give it up for Pinnacle. You know, they have some amazingly talented people. And what's so wonderful is that when we do things like this, I just get to walk in. Right? People wondering if I'm stressed. Not really. We work with professionals that know what they're doing, so when we come in, everything looks the way it's supposed to look. It runs the way it's supposed to run. And the best part about it is when we start cooking up ideas, and if anybody's ever been in an ideation session with me, you know I start huge. And then we got to whittle our way down. And sometimes in the Midwest, we have a tendency that when someone gives a big idea, the first thing that you see is horror. How will we do that? How will we pay for it? How are we going to get the people? How are we going to find the time? I don't know. How are we going to do this? How are we ever going to? Oh my God. It's an idea. Everybody relax. But when you get in a room with people who are amazing, who want to do big things, who are professionals, who want to be great at what they do, but really want to do something that has impact, you share a big idea, they throw a big idea back at you. They say, well, what if we do this? And so what you see in front of you is a true collaboration. Most of the things that you see, we didn't necessarily come up with. First of all, let me point you over there to my other friends, Jane Ray. Give it up for Jane Ray. Where my ladies at? I know y'all hooting and hollering back there someplace. There they are. I appreciate them. You see these beautiful clouds and all these different sets. First of all, they were working hard on that. You guys appreciate that, please. And then you look at your tables. This is not something that you just do. This is something that people are interested in, and they care about it, and they care about you all, and they care about what is happening here in this room. And so people took real time to try to come up with ideas that can help further the mission. Not just give us deliverables, not just get what we paid for, but people who are really interested in it and want to be connected to it. You also see some materials here from our friends at Advertising Arts. And a large portion of the things that you see and touch from Think 3D come from our friends at Advertising Arts. We're supposed to have different journals here today, and we will have them for you at some point in time. Ordered months ago. But as the world works, they are somewhere in Wisconsin right now. But you know what? I called my friend Matt up at Ad Arts, somebody that I love and I care about. And he says, listen, I'll put something together to you. We'll fire up the machines. We'll have them to you tomorrow morning. That was yesterday at 5 o'clock. Like a vendor doesn't do that for you. A partner does. Somebody that cares about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. That's what we want. We only want to do business. We only want to be in league with. We only want to be in cahoots with people we care about. People who care about what we're trying to do. That's who we want to engage with. And that's the type of environments that we want to create. One of the other things that you're going to see when you step into that beautiful room over there is our friends over at Interstate Office Products. So show some love for them real quick. Their team comes in and sets up that room, designs it, really genuinely thinks about it, thinks about the flow, how people are moving through the space, how it can generate interactions and engagement, and how they can set people's mind on fire to get them encouraged to go back to where they're at and really think about culture through the physical space and every other aspect to it. That's what they're bringing to it. We're talking about people are in there moving some of this heavy furniture. People from the office that don't even do deliveries, that don't even carry stuff, are coming in there and they're making it happen. Vendors don't do that for you. Partners do that for you. People who care about what you're trying to do that for you. So we're going to talk about collaboration, and I'm going to bring out Dan, and Dan is going to come out here and he's going to help you all think through how we can be more thoughtful about our collaborations. How do we change the tone in which We work together so it feels good as much as it can feel good. Not everything is going to go right all the time, but when you're working with people who care about you and what you're trying to do, it goes right more often than not. Dan.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more in some detail about collaboration. Like Vaney said, we're going to be tossing this back and forth a little bit, and what I'm going to be working towards is a little bit of extraction, right? We're going to do a little bit of group work with you guys at your table, so whether you're here with your team, whether you're here with just people you know professionally, or you're just here kind of at a general admission table and you are with people that you just met today, we're going to get together and we're going to be collaborative a little bit. So one of the things that I think Vaney didn't mention, but going back to that story about the handbooks and the journals, is good partners help keep your blood pressure low. Because when stuff like that happens, it's super helpful to know that somebody's got your back. And we think about some of our best collaborations, this being a great example, other projects being good examples, the work we've done with some of the organizations that are in the room. There's a few things that are common threads that I kind of want to identify and at least just get you thinking about the process. And one of the good things that good collaborations and good collaborators do is they identify their gaps. A good collaboration, a good set of collaborators should be able to say, hey, this is what our gaps are, and we need to identify those things. Secondly, we have to ask ourselves, who makes us better? And so I challenge you guys as you think about, let's say to the next CultureCon, right? When you're thinking about a year from now, some of the collaborations, some of the ideas you have that you want to do, what is it going to take? Think about who makes you better. The last piece of this is thinking about who do you want on your team. When we think of our team at Think 3D, we're a small organization. We're a team of 8. We're a tight-knit team. We have a lot of really talented people on our team, but oftentimes we need more people. So when we think about the people that we collaborate with, they're not just vendors, they're not just partners, they're not just suppliers, they're our team members. And I've got the privilege right now of taking a small group of entrepreneurs or wanting to be or aspiring entrepreneurs through a program where they get to build the foundational pieces of their business. And one of my favorite questions that they ask in that is when you're talking about the services you need or the foundational aspects, they ask you who's on your team, who's your support system. And so I want to give you guys just a few moments. We'll maybe take 30 seconds, 45 seconds at your tables, maybe a minute, and I want you to figure that out. What sort of gaps might you have, right? Who makes you better, or what type of people or services or collaborators will make you better? And most importantly, who do you want on your team? To get the things done that you want to get done over the next year, who are you going to need to bring along for the ride? Let's take a minute, let's get some music maybe going in the back, guys. I'll call you back and talk about that with the people at your table, and then we'll move forward to the next step. All right, everybody, let's bring it back to the front. I know that wasn't enough time, right? As we bring it back up here, I know we're just maybe opening up, and I know a minute's not long enough to really unpack anything like that, but hopefully what we've done is plant the seeds. And there's a lot of good examples of good collaborations, and actually, the more that we go through this presentation, you're going to be introduced to a few brands, a few events, a few things that we've done that are also great examples of good collaborations. But really, it comes back to that foundational aspect of something that we've done really, really well is we've identified our gaps. We've sought out people, teams, organizations that make us better. And we've asked, okay, are these the right people to be on our team and really help us where we need to go? The second piece that you need in order to build good collaborations is connections. And so we're going to move on to that while V takes it away.
Are an important thing for us. How do we come together? This is a prime example of the type of things we want to create with connections. Because at the end of the day, again, the value of a community is how you come together, how you engage with each other, right? It's how you make you feel. Last year I talked about how when I go into businesses, I don't feel like I'm spending money, I feel like I'm investing. I live in downtown Sioux Falls, is where I spend a lot of my time. And when I go into spaces and I genuinely walk into a space and I see people that I love and people that I care about and make me feel good, it's like, man, what is the money for? This is what I want. If you ask me what I was spending on this. I want to feel like this with people that I care about. And so how do we create these connections? Now, there was a time I was at a social event, and there was a young woman there, and she was sitting at the table with a double pour of wine. And I'm looking at her, and she is shaking the wine out of her glass. And then I go over and I said, is everything all right? She was like, I just can't do well at these things. She's like, I just get so much whatever, I just don't, And I'm a person that doesn't get terribly anxious. But in seeing that young woman's response, just sitting there in a chair by herself, I thought to myself, I will never participate in creating a space where somebody feels like this. Now, it's not worth saying where we were at, because those people weren't trying to create that environment either. But what it gave me conviction on was that we wanted to be intentional about creating a space that was different. Some of you may remember CultureCon 1, the folks that were here. That was a great event. That was just me and Tamian. We put a lot of that together, obviously with the help of our partners, but there was a lot of work in that, and we didn't know what we were doing, and we were just kind of piecing it together. And it was interesting because we got the feedback, and the feedback was really good. We were really excited about it. We said, man, people want this. People want environments like this. We got one piece of feedback that wasn't great. It was a gentleman or a person. I guess I don't know it was a gentleman. And their piece of content they wanted to give us was that I was wearing a hoodie. I can't believe you're wearing a hoodie at one of these things. This is so unprofessional. Now, first of all, if any of you run a business where you have to staff it or anything like that, wouldn't you love to go back to a time where your problem was people wearing a hoodie? Huh? Wouldn't you love that to be your issue? Something so silly like that. But in the midst of it, I started thinking to myself, I said, man, you're the reason why we have a CultureCon. Because I get to be myself. I don't have to do these things anymore. Like I always try to say out loud in my mind what I think people are really saying when they say certain stuff to me. I want to say, if a person was talking to me honestly, what would it sound like? And I think about sometimes when people are offering people jobs, and I think to myself, what would it sound like if somebody said to you, we are prepared to offer you $55,000 a year to not be yourself? How dumb does that sound to you? That's what a lot of people are asking, right? And I said to myself, you're the reason why there's a CultureCon. And then we updated CultureCon. We said, we got to step it up. There's more that we could do. There's more people that we could touch. And then we got here last year, and we had people talking about pain that they were going through. Our guy Dan right here was going through some things, and he shared that with you all last year. And in no less than a day, there were 70-some comments about people talking about how they were feeling the same thing. And then when we realized that we could do better than just putting people in a room to have something cool or something interesting where we played rap music, but rather we could do something more impactful. And then it hit me that we're the reason for CultureCon. Is that it doesn't have to be to thumb our noses at anybody else. They grew up the way they grew up. They believe what they believe, and that's fine. But to be able to say, what happens when you put people in a room where they don't have to tap dance, where they don't have to put on a thing, where you don't have to wear a mask, and you can sit next to people and talk to people and learn things about yourself and about others? What happens when you do that? What happens when you superpower a community with people who aren't afraid of each other and want to come together and collaborate with each other and do interesting and dynamic things? And that's what we want to do. You also see, when we talk about Hustlers Happy Hours, how can we come together and be with people who are ambitious and want to do great things? Some of you probably know what this feels like, where sometimes you could be around your friends and you could be excited about great things that are happening in your life because you want great things to happen in your life and you feel like you're bragging. You feel like it's always about you because you don't get an opportunity to ever have it be about you. But again, what would happen if you were in a room with people who always celebrate your successes and are not turned off by your ambitions or you wanting to do great things or believing that great things are within you to do? What happens when you are consistently in that energy? It has a tendency to change things. Something I would love you all to think about, which is how do you create these spaces beyond just your boardroom? How do you create these spaces in your community?
I've gotten to go on this journey firsthand as initially for the first CultureCon an attendee, and then eventually as a team member as we started to move forward. And I was actually able to help carry a really poorly printed Hustlers Happy Hour sign to the first Hustlers Happy Hour. And I've seen this, and set it up, and I've seen this thing grow, and I've seen these things work. And some of the things that I learned along the way when we're talking about building connections, we're talking about how to practically do that, is some of these things that we teach a little bit at Think 3D, so this might be the second or third time hearing it for some of you, but these things are pivotal. One of the first things I learned is to value friendship over just friends. Friendship is greater than just a quantity of friends. The act of friendship, the quality of friendship. Vaney challenges me a lot with stuff like that, where we start thinking about things in a different way, a deeper way. And when I would challenge you guys to think about your connections in that way. Right? What's the quality of the friendships, of the connections I have versus just the quantity of them? The next thing that I learned was that having an actual true connection is far greater than just having a wide-reaching network. As we seek to make connections, we're not everywhere. We just are where we think it's important for us to be. Building connections, building that sustainability, building genuine, authentic relationships with folks is far greater than just having an expansive network. And as a result, we have an expansive network of folks that we've developed really good relationships with. Which leads me to my last kind of point, is that we've also found, and I've learned, that authenticity is far greater than presentation. Being who you are, being true to who you are, is far greater than trying to present something. We talk about this a lot when we're coaching organizations through establishing a true, authentic, healthy culture that aligns with who they are, what they believe in, what they believe to be true about the world. And we tell them all the time, you cannot fake authenticity. It is the one thing that is 100% impossible to manufacture. So when we're going out to create spaces, everything that you see us do, and I'll be super honest with you, it used to frustrate me because for a long time I struggled to wrap my head around it as the new guy. But here we are 4 years later, and I can tell you I truly understand that we've gotten far greater value out of creating things that are truly authentic to ourselves and letting the building of that work up to where we know it can be than trying to present something in a way that we think will just work. So some of the things that you need to do in order to establish this is, one, be you. Right? Be who you are. Be true to yourself. Those things that make you the fullest, best version of yourself. Be you. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't try to be on. Just be you. The second thing is see people. Audrey, who killed it this morning, by the way, had a great ending idea worth doing, which was seeing you equals seeing others. And people can be loved, people can be hated, but what people can't be is ignored. Something that we teach at Think 3D, something that I've really clung to, is in order to build sustainable, established connections, you have to see people. So when you see people and you can actually see them for who they are, where they are, and with what they've got, you start to identify what they need. And when you can see people and see what they need, kind of like we saw the need for conferences that felt good, that were open, where we could hang out. We had a really tight-knit community just in this room. We felt the need for spaces like Hustlers Happy Hour where we could have a refuge that was uplifting and positive. Once you see those things, you can engage. So I want you guys to think about this for just maybe a minute. And we'll just throw some music on for 30 seconds or so. But I want you guys to think about, where do you see connections needing to be made? Think about that. Write down a few ideas. It could be in your personal life. It could be at work. It could be with your team. But where do you see connections needing to be made where you can start taking advances towards helping people be authentic, helping people create valuable, lasting friendships, and creating those sustainable connections? Takes a few minutes, and then Vaney's going to bring you guys back out on the other side.
All right, let's bring it back. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So, think about those connections that need to be made and have a plan for making them. Get with somebody. Send the email off tomorrow. Send the email off today. Say, hey, let's get coffee. Let's get lunch. Let's talk about what we can do together and what it is that we can build. Now, the word that you will hear us say a lot is community, because ultimately that's what it comes down to. And there's a couple things that go into that. Some of the stuff that builds character, some of the stuff that builds dialogue, and some of the stuff that builds leaders. If you notice, there's a trend to a lot of my passions. One of my personal brands, which is Flower of a Country, is one that I designed because everywhere I went, people would see my ID and they'd be like, South Dakota? You're from South Dakota? What's going on in South Dakota? That's flyover country, right? And people will always say it with a little bit of disrespect in it, you know what I mean? And if you're not familiar with the concept of flyover country, it means that so little is happening here, why stop, just fly over? Well, joke's on them, because they can fly over it all they want, because we love it here. I was doing a podcast one time and somebody asked me the question. They said, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you want to live? And I said, I can't live anywhere in the world, and I want to live here with you all. Yeah, give it up for us. Let's go. What do we... Now, I said, if I am going to live here, we got to add some flavor to this, because I'm not wearing a pheasant. I'm not wearing a pheasant. I'm over the silhouette of the snake. God bless y'all. But we can do something a little bit fresher than that. So we wanted to have something that was a little bit more flash and forward that I can move. But also, we wanted to tell stories about people who are doing cool things in the Midwest. And my partner, Josh Novak, does a great job of helping to tell those stories. And as we build these things, we want to build a pride in what it is that we're doing. We want to make sure that people feel good about where it is that we're at. Actually, speaking of Flower of a Country, one of the things that you could probably see in our program, which I'm excited to announce, is that next year we will be doing another CultureCon. So we still have this one, but we also will be doing one on the west side of the state. So shout out over there. Brand new building, The Box, that's just being built right now. Live Hospitality over there. Those are going to be our partners in that as well. And let me tell you something. First of all, we're going to put an end to this whole East River, West River nonsense. Can we all agree to be done with that? Okay, let's be done with that. Let's make sure we're doing this together. And so we can't wait to take that energy there so that we can connect our communities even in a more broad way than we have already. You also, some of you have seen or interacted with our community conversations, because it's not just all pie in the sky and happiness. It's also about how do we have difficult and challenging conversations? How do we get together when things aren't always right? How do we make sure that we're learning about each other? And so in an attempt to bring people together, every so often we come together with people from all different parts of the community to talk about how we can make the community better, some of the challenges that they're experiencing and some of the frustrations that they're experiencing. And the reason why we think it's so important for us to play a part in this is because there's certain things that a business can do that is very difficult for the community to do. And that's why it's so important as businesses, we think a little bit differently about how we think about community. Some people think that they use their community and the resources of it to fuel their business, where some people think a little bit differently and they use their businesses to fuel the community. At the end of the day, what does it take to get a neighborhood together? What does it take to get a whole group of people together to come together on the same thing and decide something? Versus you being able to deploy a staff that already has a communication channel, already has functions, already has process, already has the things that you need to make this thing go. In a lot of these initiatives, there's no one better suited to push these things forward than an organization that's already organized. So now what does it look like when our organizations realize that doing good is good business? We want to be fully transparent with what we're doing. We expect all of this to work out. We expect this to help our organizations and our business, absolutely. But if you notice, every single thing that you've seen over here for the most part is talking about Leaders of Tomorrow, the program that we give to the community for free. So people don't have a cost, right? That's what's important to us. The business will take care of itself if we do right by our community, if we do what we need to do. And then last but not least, you saw what happened with the soccer league and things of that nature. It doesn't all have to be these super deep programs and things of that nature. Sometimes you just need to get people from a neighborhood together, roll out a ball, and let them realize that they enjoy spending time with each other. Those are some of the things that truly makes our community strong. Those are some of the things that truly makes our community great. So be thoughtful about the ways that you can actually deploy into your community, not only just for the benefit of your business, but so the people in it can be enriched and can be fulfilled and refilled in the things that they're doing, knowing that they're doing more than just banging widgets in the what's-its, but rather they're shaping the place where they will live, where their kids will grow, where their friends will grow. If you put in that work, you will find that doing good is good business. So think about how we can do more in those spaces.
Some of the through lines to all the things that Vaney just went through when we talked about community are these three things. And I'm going to get through this quick so I think this one's important, so I want to give us more time at the tables to actually maybe ideate a couple of things. But they have these three things. One, they know the identity of the community that they're trying to establish or they're trying to serve. Secondly, they give people some pride, a sense of belonging. People need a sense of belonging. And lastly, they're functional. Like they do something. These communities aren't idealistic. These communities aren't ideologies. They're functional communities. I mean, today's a great testament to leaders of tomorrow. Got a lot of grads in the room, but a lot of the stuff that you're seeing in action as a result of that community working the way that it was intentionally designed to. Same with the community table talks. We're seeing stuff come out of that, right? So the community has to be functional. One key, and there's no real like silver bullet to any of this, there's no one key, but the one thing we have seen is you just have to build. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take time, know that, but you have to build it, right? When you enter into a space and you say, hey, I really wish there was a community for this, guess what? It's time to build it. Right? So you have to build these things. So I want you guys to take home minutes. We're probably actually going to take just about 2. And I want you guys to answer these questions. Who's your community? As a business or a team, or if you're here as an individual, who's your community? Who's the community that you're trying to reach, the community that you're trying to build for? What do they need to belong? What do they need to feel like they belong to that community? And what is that community going to do? Do you have a community you're going to try to reach? It could be somebody you're going to try to serve with some nonprofit work or some community-based work. It could be who you're trying to reach as a brand. It could be your team. If you're sitting here today and being like, hey, we need to start investing in and developing in the community of organizations. So take a couple minutes and we're going to talk about who your community is, what do they need, and what is that community going to do. All right, let's get ready to bring it back up to the group. Bring it back up here on the stage. Again, I know that these are not long enough periods of time to have a full conversation about something, but the very least that you can do is get started with thinking about who's a community that you need to serve, who is that community, what do they need, and what is that community going to do. An example of that is the evolution of our Leaders of Tomorrow community and how it's now branched off. You heard from Dawn Marie a little bit of her experience and her story, growing a program with the students that she served and that she educated. One example was we looked at the Leaders of Tomorrow group, we looked at our city, and we saw and identified that there was a need to truly develop people coming out of incarceration, people coming out of the justice system, right? So we identified that as our community. This is a community we need to serve, right? And then what do they need to feel belonging? Well, they need development. They need inspiration. They need confidence. They need skills. They need someone to come alongside them and develop them. And then what was that do? And it did that. It provided skills, relationships, and confidence. And from there, we're able to elevate and start building into programs. And now we've got cohorts that run for these things full time. So it can start with a really simple idea, but you have to, at the core, identify, again, the identity, the pride, the sense of belonging, and then figure out how it's going to function.
Now, it's cool doing these things, but how do we talk about them? How do we dialogue? How do we let people know what's going on? One of the things that we did, like we said, our business plan doesn't make sense for a lot of people, but we have Thinker Networks. And Thinker Networks is our media arm. And, well, hello. Let's go back to that. Okay. Nope, didn't do that right. Okay, boom, there we go. That's how that's supposed to work. But Thinker is our media arm. And so what that does is that really, let me explain to you the story. So this little thing happened called COVID, right? And we are an event organization. And so our calendar went to vapors, gone, right? And so during that time, we had started to go about the work of telling our story. How do we start to tell people what it is that we're doing? Our philosophy, the way that we see the world. And we wanted to be able to give people content about what we were talking about that didn't necessarily require their organization to be into it or for them to have the money to be able to afford it. We wanted people to have access to content. So we started doing that, which was awesome. And that worked out well for us. And then we moved on to doing some work with our downtown Rotary. This is in the face of things like George Floyd and some of the different challenges that we were having in our communities. And we were saying, how can we have more relevant conversations? With our folks at Rotary, we said, how can we be more than just a place where the important people are versus where the important conversations were happening? How can we bring in people from all over the world to talk about things that were challenging and sometimes uncomfortable? But that is what leaders do. They have the conversations so we can learn the lessons and move on and do the things that we need to do. And luckily, we had an opportunity to be able to do this. And now this created a whole kind of snowball. And we said, man, this is one of the things that we have to do. How do we tell our story? We see so many people doing great things and no one knows about it. That's another Midwestern thing where sometimes we are not good at telling people how amazing that we are. Now, we weren't the only people who had this struggle. I'm also on the board for the Levitt Band Shell. And what we found is that the Levitt's season went away. And the Levitt's mission is creating a community through free live music. And we wanted to keep that mission going. So we started Levitt in Your Living Room. And during the COVID time, we were able to bring in bands who were not able to make it onto the stage, listen to their music, learn about them so that they can learn about our communities. And we were able to keep the mission going. Because we were able to tell our story. We were able to show people out in the world how amazing we are. And I'm telling you, so many of these bands from all over the world, from Australia, from Ireland, they said, this is special. This is interesting what you're doing in little old Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Almost no one in the nation was matching what it was that we were doing and the way that we were doing it. It's because we were able to. Then this right here, that's my good friend Alana Snyder at 605 Magazine. We have a little show, maybe you've heard of it, 605 Show. Make sure you check out that podcast. It's pretty amazing. Thank you very much. Where basically what we do is we go places, we hang out, and we eat good food, which is my deal for sure. But we wanted to show a different side. We do cool things, we're interesting, and so many times it's like we have this desire to import stuff from someplace else versus exporting things and letting people know that we have a perspective. Cool is not what you do, it's who does it, right? And we have an opportunity to show people our swag, our way, the way we see the world. And even help my friend Josh Novak here, my business partner, fly over country, do the 8 p.m. show. Now, if you didn't see the original, the origins of this show, it started off in his attic that was far too small for him to be doing anything in, with a very small desk that he was doing during that period of time. And so we took it into the studio and blew it up and made it something that was a little bit more long-lasting, where we get a chance to sit down and talk to each other and say, what are you doing cool? What are you doing interesting? What are you doing dynamic? What does it look like when we start to look at ourselves? When we start to get used to the idea of seeing us be successful, us be special, us do interesting and dynamic things, and how can we tell those stories for each other? And then one of the things that is closest to our heart, as we've talked about many times, is Leaders of Tomorrow and the wonderful people that we touch and all of the different things that we do there. But one thing that's really important to us, which is why we had our team step out on the stage. Everyone who works at Think 3D will touch the stage at one point or another, because we believe in developing your voice. We believe in developing that courage of advocacy and being able to speak. And we're not just gonna hope you do it. We're not just gonna wish you do it. We're gonna teach you how to do it. You saw my girl Audrey tonight kill it. Yeah, give it up. Stop it, man. But we wanted to show folks these beautiful people. People who have gone through all of these different experiences. And this series that you see here is called In Their Own Words. And we mean it exactly like that. That what does it mean to them? What have their experiences been like? What have they gone through in their own words? That's something we got to get used to. It's telling people our story and what we've gone through and what we're going through in our own words. Nobody to tell it for us. Nobody to make their own narrative about who they think we are or what it is that we think we believe or what it is they think we do, but rather our ability to be able to say to the world, this is what we believe from our own mouths in our own words. This is the power of telling your story. This is the power of being able to share to people, tell your story, not just because people need to know it, which they do, but also you become a lighthouse, a beacon to all the people out in the world who are looking for their home, a place where they can feel good. And if you have the way, if you have the space, if you have the environment for them, tell them that you have it. Listen, no disrespect to Indeed, but it can't communicate how you're gonna feel. It can't communicate what those people really want from me and what they wanna do, and if there's any integrity in it, if there's any life in it, if there's any drive in it or power in it or impact in it. Tell people that story. Not only will it help people know that you're the one that they should be doing business with, but it also is going to let people know that that is the place that I am supposed to be. That's where I'm going to be safe. That's where I'm going to be taken care of. That's where I'm going to be developed. Tell people your story. Start the conversation about what it means to be in this community in particular.
One of the things that's super important about when we discuss the importance of telling your story, the importance of leading conversations, is talking about just, one, the responsibility of doing it. And something we realized early on, having been on the other side of the camera that was pointing towards all those people that we saw creating those stories, having been on the other side of that camera a lot, was that if you are not leading the conversation, somebody else is, right? If you are not the one stepping into that space to say, hey, this is something important for us to talk about, as a business or as an individual, right? Even in your family, even in your home, even your work, all those places. If you're not doing it, somebody else is going to be doing it. Lastly, these three things were really, really critical. One, conversations take time. If you've been listening to our content, if you have been in any way, shape, or form following Think 3D, since the beginning, we have been saying the same thing. We're consistent. These things take time. The second thing would be to explore new avenues. If you are considering, hey, here's something we need to be talking about over the next year. Here's something our brand, our team, our group, or me as an individual wants to share. Explore new avenues. When we were faced with the pandemic and we had a couple of options, one of the things we could do was explore new avenues, new ways to communicate with people, new ways to get our conversations and our stories in front of them, and we're still doing that. So you have to explore new avenues. Lastly is capture first, then create. And this is something, if you're just starting out and you're thinking about, well, content seems like a lot. This seems like a lot of production. This isn't really our thing. I'm not really sure where to go. I would encourage you to start capturing conversations first. Then work on creating those stories. Then work on creating those things. But capture the stuff that you're already talking about, the things that are already super important to you. And so I want you guys to answer these questions. What's important, right? And we're just going to do this as I'm talking up here. We're not going to break for time. But I want you to think about what's important to you. What conversations do you think need to be happening right now? As a team, what sort of things are really important to your business? As an organization, what things are really important for you to communicate or discuss that's happening right now? Next, who needs to be involved in this? Do I got to get some partners? Do I got to collaborate? Do I got to look into my connections and see who I can bring with me to start having this conversation? And then lastly, I want you to think about how you are going to spread the message. When you're looking to start a conversation, you can start small. It doesn't have to be big. We started on a stage that was really small. We started a lot of shows, a lot of content, a lot of productions that have been really small and are now elevating. So start where you're at with what you've got and identify those things. Identify what's important to you. Figure out who needs to go along for the ride, who you need to sit down with, across the table with and have these conversations. And then think about how you are going to spread the message.
Okay. Now, the big piece to meet here is the coaching. This is the primary function of what we do. So when people ask us specifically what we do, what we say is we specialize in leadership development training and organizational culture coaching. We used to say consultants, but we're not really consultants because consultants give you a thing and then they go away. We're coaches. We're going to be there with you. There's a reason why we hyper-focus on Sioux Falls because this is where we live. We get a greater return, and we genuinely, 100% care about the people that we work with. And Tammy and I, when we started Think 3D, we liquidated everything that we had, for the most part, to start this business. The reason why we did that is because we wanted to make moral decisions. So we didn't take investors because you can't make moral decisions with other people's money. And so we use our own money, right? And we had these high principles of these things that we wanted to do. We came up with these non-negotiables. We have 3 non-negotiables when we start with an organization. First is everyone in the boat. We're not here to fix them. If you think you're above the training or you don't think you need it, there's no greater evidence that you do. So everybody in the boat. 2, just because you pay us doesn't mean we work for you. We are partners. We are not people that you move around. We are people who are going to challenge you, hold you accountable, and push you to greatness. And for that, we can't be under your thumb. And we're going to be who we are because there's nothing more disingenuous than you asking me to be disingenuous, telling your people that you're being genuine. So there will be none of that. And then third, you got to be willing to let go of your top performer because they're undermining the culture. Because if there's enough money you can make or enough stuff that you can do to justify diminishing the experience for everyone else, a healthy culture is something you are not interested in. But I got to tell you, when you are 2 broke people in a broom closet, it is hard to have the guts to say that to somebody who's cutting a check. But we did it, and thank God we did. Thank goodness we did, that we had the strength to do that, because now we get to work with people that legit I want to spend time with, I care about. In order for me to be thinking about your business at any part of the day, because we don't really believe in work-life balance, we believe in work-life integration. I'm not going to stop thinking about my wife when I get to work, and I'm not going to start thinking about my clients that I care about when I get home. I'm going to do it responsibly, though. And it's going to be for things that I really care about in the way that I really care about it. And so there's nothing I love more than thinking about how we can do better. The other piece of it is, and this is one tip that I need you to get that is really important, is this. We wanted to create community, not customers. You want to create community, not customers, because dealing with customers can be difficult. And we need people to help us on this journey. Here's what I mean. Have you ever gone to Amazon and looked at some of the reviews? Sometimes I study the reviews to see how customers behave. And it's interesting. You'll see somebody that'll say something, and they'll say, I bought this toy for my kids. It worked like they said it would, but my kids didn't even play with it. 1 star. And you say to yourself, 1 star? What do you mean? You just said it worked. Why would you give it 1 star? Because it didn't work the way you wanted to. And see, that's the thing about customers. Customers are going to want what they want, the way they want it, when they want it, for how much they want to pay for it. That's what customers are going to want. And perhaps that's a reasonable expectation, but they don't want beta, they don't want a process, they don't want version 1. They want it to work the way they want it to work, when they want it to work, how they want it to work, for what they want to pay for it. We want community. We don't want people who are going to give us criticisms. We want people who are going to give us feedback. Criticism is what you give to somebody you don't know. You tweak criticism. Feedback is what you give to somebody that you want to see better, that you want to see develop, you want to see grow. Those are the people we want. We want people who absolutely realize the same truth that we have is the same truth that they have, which is this organization is people. And we make mistakes, and we mess up. We don't do everything right. And when we're trying to do stuff, sometimes it's not going to work out the way we want to. But it's not a failure, it's an attempt. That's what happens when you're trying to do something. And the only way to avoid that is not to try anything at all, which is why failure is not the opposite of success. It's an integral part of success. Inactivity is the opposite of success. What's a surefire way to get nothing? Do nothing. That's the opposite of success. We're going to do something. It's not always going to line up the way they want to. We're going to try to prove it. We're going to try to make it better. That's how that part works. For us, when we talk about coaching, legitimately, when I leave a space after we work there, sometimes I can say to myself, man, I think we probably helped a marriage today. Because look, again, the money part is cool. I get that. And we ask people this all the time. I'll do this with you. All of you get up every day to get enough money. And it makes sense. You need enough money, right? What would you do if you had enough money?
Whatever I want. I don't know.
Whatever you want. Yes. Qual, what would you do if you had enough money? Replicate it. What would you do if you had enough money?
Just stuff I do for fun.
Stuff you do for fun. What would you do if you had enough money? No, you would work. See, people always say this. They say, well, I would keep working. Of course you would. But are you going to let people tell you when to take your break? No. There's already a thing when people work and they don't require money. It's called volunteering, right? You could do that already. But the reality of it is that if you had enough money, you would go do something that you were passionate about, that you were engaged in. And so all of you get up every day to go to a system to get enough money. But the system only works if you don't have enough money. Because if you had enough money, you wouldn't come back. You will never win that. That's a hamster wheel. Is what you're doing truly impactful? Does it really matter? Does it move the needle? Does it do something for your community? Because it's cool to have money. But does it really matter if you can go to Disney World if your kids don't like you very much? I'm only kind of joking. Seriously, right? If you come home and it's cold, if you come home and it just doesn't feel right, that's the thing. And I want y'all to understand, we're belaboring this point on purpose. Because many of you have grown up in a system where you got to put on a face. You got to do a thing. It's a production. You get up every day and you go in and you do this performance. And you spend all your energy trying to be something else, and then you go home only to have the people who know who you truly are get the least of you. My question to you is, how much longer are we going to accept this? The reason why I love this room so much is because it feels good. There's so many conferences I've gone to where I'm sneaking in the room only to sit silently for the whole day to listen to people who are not talking about me. I don't want to do that anymore. So we made our own room. This is not the only room, though. We want you to make, I want to go to dope conferences. I want you guys to build one, and you guys to build one, and you guys to build one. Let's build this thing together. Let's do something dynamic and interesting, and let's make this community something that's so special that people have never seen it before. Let's be a model community. One of the things we tell people is we got to think beyond the box. And perhaps that was a mistake, because the thing that we really want you to know is there is no box. We can do whatever we want to make us feel good, to make us feel loved, to make us feel special. We can do the stuff. We can produce the thing, but the thing is not the point. You're the point. You are the point. And so we wanted to share this with you again, not as a commercial, but as an inspiration. We want you to get into the world and figure out how you can touch it. More than just one thing. Start getting weird. Flip some switches, pull some levers, see what happens, y'all. Let's figure it out. But one thing is for sure, this room, we don't have to tap dance anymore. You don't have to put on a face. You get to come as you are, and let's make a community that reflects that. And let's make sure not a single generation more has to pretend for any portion of their life. How about that? Thank you, guys.